What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and I got a curious email yesterday about a new Half-Life game. And obviously I treated this with a healthy dose of skepticism, given that community is probably one of the most depressed ever. One of the, Half-Life, the highest rated game on PC in history, a gigantic fandom, has waited for Half-Life 3 so long, I'd liken it to Ghostbusters 3, to be honest with you. Half-Life 3 should have been done a decade ago, never did it, and now the pressure is so immense that they're probably afraid to do it. Living up to your own expectations is probably one of the most frightening things for a developer, living up to the standard that you've set. You can look at a lot of third installments that just weren't as good as the first two, but as long as you do it in a timely manner, I think you still profit from the nostalgia factor. In a lot of ways, Borderlands 3 wasn't exactly imaginative or new, but it was just more Borderlands, and it was released in a reasonable time frame, so people still really liked it and reviewed above average. With Half-Life, after waiting for more than a decade, the game would, unfortunately for the developers, have to be amazing. Oh, boo-hoo, customers would have to get a great game. So I got an email yesterday with all sorts of information in it, but I wasn't sure how to relay it, how to share it with all of you. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to show, now that some other people have started to report on the exact same thing I have a little bit more than they do, but Half-Life Alyx, a VR successor to Half-Life 2, could be announced very soon. My sources say it's going to be on the 20th, which would be the anniversary. Are you joking? Are you serious? You make the Half-Life community wait 12 years for an announcement, and in my opinion, you're only doing it to sell your $1,000 VR kits. But I digress. Half-Life Alyx, a VR successor to Half-Life 2, could be announced very soon. My sources say it absolutely will be. Gordon Bennett, Half-Life Alyx is reported to be announced by Valve at the Game Awards 2019. A new Half-Life game is in the works at Valve, according to a number of rumors. A supposedly leaked transcript, which has now been deleted, by the way, as first spotted by PC Gamer, between Game Awards creator Jeff Keighley and Valve's Robin Walker, and an unnamed third person, refers to the project called Half-Life Alyx, releasing in March 2020, being developed for the virtual reality hardware, presumably Valve's own Index VR headset. Another user on Reddit also stated that Half-Life Alyx, named after one of the central characters, will be announced this Wednesday. That's what my data says. It's on the 20th. And is a VR continuation of where Half-Life 2 events ended. That's not what I heard. I heard it's a prequel. Prominent Half-Life internet personality Tyler McVicker is also hosting a stream on Wednesday. Incidentally, a number of developers at Valve-acquired studio Campo Santo have recently changed their Twitter bios, suggesting they're no longer working on a previously announced adventure title in Valley of the Gods, but an undisclosed project within the company. Could this be the reported Half-Life follow-up, or could this be Valley of the Gods getting a rebrand? There's clearly plenty going on at the Bellevue studio at the moment. Either way, we could hear more from Valve officially this Wednesday or next month during the Game Awards itself. Considering the well-documented wait for a follow-up for Half-Life 2, Episode 2, the internet is sure to keep close eye on all Valve news over the next few weeks. Well, if we look, I'm going to share what the insider has told me too here. Zoiks, look at this. Look at this cover for Cyberpunk. This is all-time PC scores. Half-Life 2, 96. Grand Theft Auto 5, 96. By the way, that's a critic score. User 7.1. Half-Life 2, 96. User 91. Then you have the Orange Box, 96, which is just another Half-Life collector's edition. Then you have, Half-Life 2. Then you have the original Half-Life. An amazing series. I loved it. Loved every minute of it. It was one of the first games that really was gripping for PC on me. For me. Now I'm going to share with you what the insider has told me and hopefully shed some more light on it. So I'm speaking to the insider. That's being mild. I said, so I'll drop this on Monday. I said I'm going to do a video on Monday. So Valve has a VR kit and they're using Half-Life to push it. Is that a fair thing to say? The insider comes back and says, that's more than fair to say. That's being mild. I don't know how knowledgeable you are around the Half-Life franchise and the massive video community it has. Does not seem you're much into it from the 500 or so videos I checked over. You never really mention Valve unless it's Steam or Half-Life. Steam. The myth, the legend, and the eternal wait for Half-Life is big. Very big. Half-Life 2 is the highest rated Metacritic game of all time. Portal 2 in the top 10. And the anticipation for Half-Life is insane. But people have grown tired and annoyed by Valve doing stuff, chasing trends like Artifact, which, by the way, completely bombed. That's my anecdote, not his. Then Underlords, and then all this garbage. Valve's VR kit is called the Valve Index, a $1,000 set that Valve has been pushing, but VR is just not in a healthy place, and it still causes too many problems, and is niche and very expensive. Not just the gear, but the environment itself. The thing about VR is the people that are into it are really into it, but that's still a really, really tiny group of people. Add on to that, the unlikelihood of most people being able to afford it. You need a high-end gaming PC. Then you also need $1,000 in hardware. Then you also need a large open space. Down here in the quartering studio, I could perceivably set up a nice VR kit off my tower here, my Origin PC. Not sponsored, just purchased it. And but not a lot of people. If you live in an apartment, you've got a couch in there, it's difficult to even have the room. Just the logistics of VR, not to mention the motion sickness and other issues like that. If you read the interview, which is much clearer in the text form than it will be in video, then you will see how transparent it gets. I have strongly hinted at this, I'm going to skip this part. It's a little specific. The reception is mixed to mostly bad. Mostly bad. 12 years of waiting and they butchered the IP for some VR game. Yeah, this is not going to go over well and the poo storm is coming. They know that and they're going to try to manipulate everyone to say, you better like this or else. That would be brutal. If they put this out and they hold the community hostage by saying, well, if you don't like this, then we're never going to do Half-Life 3. That would be unbelievable. I want people to have transparency and understand what Valve is doing because it's frustrating how they get away with their BS and get hailed as Lord Gaben, savior of the PC, which is not exactly true. The man fell from grace a long time ago. He used to be my idol and the reason I am in the industry. Okay, yeah, so original Half-Life released November 19th, 1998. This will be the anniversary. The deadline, however, is the 20th, so it could be Wednesday too. It's definitely coming this week, and they have uploaded and all is set, done, which need to be translated into as many languages as possible. Let's see here. Here's part of the translation. Hey guys, Jeff Keighley, and I'm here with Valve in Seattle, Washington. This is such a special day for me, as I'm sure many of you, because Valve is ready to reveal the next project. In 1997, when I was going to college, I came to Seattle to meet with Gabe Newell and the team when they were making their first game, of course, Half-Life. And I wrote a story about the making of called The Final Hours of Half-Life. I did it again for Half-Life 2, and today I'm happy to announce that in 2020 I'll be writing another Final Hours and about the next project. So what is it? The interview will come out on the 19th, Half-Life's anniversary, or the 20th, might depend on time zone. Let me actually open up this file quick. Okay, I've figured it out. Now, this is the actual translation file, which is from the Jeff Keighley interview. Now, this looks to have been deleted as the original file, so I wonder... Make sure you leave a like and you share this video. I'm not sure if I'm going to be told to take this down or not, but tough. It's out in the public space. I'm going to cover it. Hey guys, it's Jeff Keighley. I'm here in Seattle, Washington. Such a special day for me, and I'm sure many of you, because Valve is ready to reveal its next project. In 97, I came to college. I came here to Seattle, met with Gabe Newell and the team when they were making their first game, and of course that was Half-Life. I wrote the story about that. I did it again. I'm happy to announce that in 2020, I'll be writing another Final Hours about the next project. So what is it? Well, it's a new Half-Life project. It's called Half-Life Alyx, a full-blown virtual reality prequel to Half-Life. And right here on the floor 14, just off the lobby for the past few years, a team of more than 50 folks at Valve have been working in absolute secrecy building this project. They're working on it right here now. I've been up here quietly over the past few years chronicling the development of the game, and I'm sure you have lots of questions about this. I can't believe it's actually happening, and today we're going to give you a little bit of a taste of what's going on at Valve over the past decade. Why now is the right time to talk about the project and bring it out in 2020. Here we go. I know that we'll get into the final hours, but there's been a lot of other games that you guys have worked on in the past 9 years that people have just never heard about or never shipped, right? Yeah, that's true. I mean, along the way, building Source 2, we tried various games in different franchises, and each of them kind of moved the engine forward in some way and explored some idea. And they're all backburnered for good reasons, I think. But there were more like milestones along the way to get where we are now with Half-Life Alyx. And I think I'd really be fun to delve into those. Yeah, we will. Yeah, in the future. Well, that's exciting. Somebody will think that of Valve's off counting its money or not. You guys not making games, and you guys have been here working on a bunch of projects, but then again, it brings obviously to this one. And why this and why now? Some people would probably cynically say, oh, Valve has to go back to making games now. That's Epic's chipping away at Steam, and Artifact wasn't necessarily a hit. Wow, that's that's putting it generously. Everyone wanted it to be, and now that's not what happened. But can you maybe talk about it? Like how you got to the point of Half-Life Alyx. And we'll get into that fact that it's VR and whatnot. Now, this is getting to some of the spiciness. At least he's asking. How did this sort of begin? Yeah, man, I think you have to go back to around 2016 or so when Vive shipped. And I think there was our feeling after we shipped the Vive, and, quote, the lab was aligned, I think very cleanly, with what we were saying. A bunch of customers were seeing, or a bunch of customers say all the time was, where's the big VR title? A lot of people could see the promise of VR as a platform. Well, quote, the lab was awesome. Oh, that was amazing. Yes, I loved that. That was amazing. A little experiment, right? Yeah, very happy with the lab. I think the lab was a combination of our efforts, is understanding the mechanics of VR. A lot of the industry as a whole was doing all kinds of really interesting experimentation with the mechanics of VR and so on. When customers were saying, where's a big VR game, one of those things we had to sort of ask the time, we had to do around that time is sort of ask, well, what do they mean then? Because we thought the lab was a big game. We thought a lot of those other great indie devs and so on were making great VR games as well. And it seemed like to a bunch of people, it seemed like to us that a bunch of people were asking, where's the big sort of all-encompassing content sprawl that you get into a big AAA title of some kind? High production values, yeah. And there are many reasons why, and there still is, hard to justify building something in that scope in VR. We felt like it was a role we could fill because we can certainly invest in sort of longer term strategies and putting more effort and money into something that we may expect a return on for an audience like with VR. So back in 2016, we shipped the lab and we started doing experiments on what other things we could do with this. I just remember when Gabe was saying, we're working on 2 or 3 VR things or something, where there was ideas and sort of like, let's do a Half-Life VR game. And let's do a big VR game. No. So it's definitely, let's do a big VR game. Yeah, okay. Then we explored the franchises. We kind of ruled out multiplayer because of the small audience for VR. And I mean, other issues as well with VR, avatars and things like that. And we sort of settled on Portal or Half-Life. As interesting as Portal is, so much about flinging yourself through space and portals, we thought that we're going to make a bunch of people sick with that game. And that's why the lab, or Aperture Hands, that was in the Portal universe kind of worked. You're right. Like, full-on Portal game would be disorientating. Yeah, a full-on Portal game seemed challenging, and then we looked at Half-Life. Sort of DNA of the product and a bunch of the elements seemed really enhanced by VR. You know what I mean? Half-Life is about this cadence of story, combat, puzzle, exploration, interaction, you know, environmental art, vistas, and things like that. They all seem to be enhanced or reinvented in interesting ways by VR. So as we explored that, I mean, you guys were, I wasn't on the team at the time, but you guys were doing the prototype. Yeah, Dario and a small group of us was. We basically literally started with Half-Life assets, then Half-Life 2 assets. So he built this short, like 15 minutes, I think it was. It was pretty basic. Our intention was to build 15 minutes of Half-Life experience using the Half-Life textures and Half-Life assets. I think we stole Counter-Strike's gloves that they hadn't shipped yet. And Counter-Strike at the time, combat stuff, no, we need hands for blah, blah, blah. So, straight Half-Life 2 AR was just an AI. All the assets were 12 years old. It was pretty funny. No, well, I was saying it was very nostalgic. Over the years, I've always been wondering, is it like, oh, when are they going to touch those assets? Or secretly, I'd be asking about getting G-Man for something. It's like, see if they had a new model, but no, it's the same from, yeah, there it is. So, let's go forward a little bit. There's a lot of stake with that. There is a reason in which a small team, maybe it was earlier because we started this as an exploration of VR mechanics rather than, hey, we're going to make a Half-Life, whatever it's going to be. So it was, we can kind of stay focused on that, laughing, haha, Half-Life, whatever. That just makes it a lot easier because we're sort of what we can do, how we can translate the Half-Life mechanics to VR. I mean, this is absolutely happening, right? You know, and this is out there. Of course, I think, you know, this interview is obviously happening. This is a lot of, this would be an epic troll. I don't think that's the case, the entire thing. We're super excited that's happening, but why does this have to be VR only? Which, you know, is a fair concern of people, right? It's like, are they forcing me to buy VR to have the next Half-Life experience? Is that just because you think the opportunity for innovation was sort of in VR space with all this? You're not doing it a flat screen version of this game, right? Yeah, I mean, we would love to be delivering a version of this game you could play with a mouse and keyboard. But like we said, it began as an exploration of VR, and the more we use the controllers and headset, we realize the amount of interactions this gives, the amount of possibilities this things give. The more we explored it and the more we realize that, the more opportunity we can't really translate back to the keyboard. When you track your hands separately from your head, they're all in a 3D space all simultaneously. Tracking and moving, you can't go back to the keyboard and do that with a mouse and keyboard. And when you put this into the game mechanics, well, it's interesting. You know, is this going to be enough to rival, to get everyone to go out and spend $1,000, essentially to spend enough to buy a brand new gaming computer just to play one VR title? It's possible. I don't think that the Half-Life community is going to be very excited about the premise. I don't think that there's a lot of penetration in the VR market to expect that lots of people would have this thing. The idea that I have to spend a G just to play Half-Life, that game had better be amazing. And the requirements, you know, you need a GTX 980 or an AMD RX 480 with a dual-core processor. I mean, nowadays, kind of the latest generation of laptops are probably shipping with mostly what you need to do VR, but it's still a high-end gaming piece of hardware, and it's still $1,000 for this. I have zero interest in it, especially at $1,000. If they were maybe $100 or $200, I might consider it. But I've just not had a lot of interest in VR, and I don't think that the Half-Life community is going to be super excited about being forced to buy a $1,000 VR kit to play the latest Half-Life game. And if they hold the community hostage, that's going to be even worse. Nonetheless, I'm looking forward to hearing what all of your thoughts are in the comment section down below, and we'll talk to you again real soon.